Hey folks, this is Brian. We got to play Elderath last night. Oh, so we had killed some goblins before, so we're still in the goblin area. I forgot what door that was. It was probably B. Um, but we move west down the main hall, and there's some northern alcoves actually connect to another northern alcove we had bypassed. But we get to this room, and there's a couple entrances to the west, and there's one to the north, and we kind of all just kind of not scatter about, but yeah, Runt goes north, and uh, Himyar goes towards the middle of the room. Raymond is back behind Wes. Wes is on the north side, flashing his light around like a thing, and javelins come flying out. And I think three of them targeted Wes. One actually hit. Wes, we heard some movement or something, and so Wes cast blur on himself, to, give him that defensive bonus. And I'm thinking, because I had a discussion with the GM. Oh, by the way, the live play's got all this kind of stuff in it if you want to hear discussions, etc. But with spell on Rollmaster, there are certain spells that are instantaneous. I mean, they don't require any preparation, but we're keeping to the you can only cast one spell around kind of thing. So if I do a defensive spell up first, like like blur, right? Which gives them a minus 10%. Then I can't cast deflections later on if they come throwing javelins out at me. So I've got to come up with a TTP on that, on how am I going to handle playing with defensive magics and that sort of thing. Because it almost seems to me like it's designed, I mean, deflections, right? They shoot at you, throwing stuff, deflect, deflect, deflect. Zero preparation, doesn't take time. But I don't know. Anyway, so let's see, hit once in the chest, but his armor absorbed all of that because he's got heavy leather on top of padding on top of heavy cloth with heavy cloth overall. That all adds up. He's got his encumbers added up. Okay, so Wes books it to the south so he can orient. He also wanted to flash down that southern entrance to see if there's something back there. In the process of him moving down, orcs coming out. Um, One of them engages him and he tries to do sleep and it didn't work. He tried to do sleep again and it didn't work. On the third time, it finally worked. He didn't do it at first because there were only just four of us, so there's one each, and he pulled out his rapier so he can fight and defend, that kind of thing. And Hilmier got ganged up on. He went down with a leg hit. Runts didn't sneak up because he's got a torch, but he did a you know backstab kind of thing to one of the orcs and actually got, I don't know if the first one was a crit or the second one, but he critted on one of them into the chest to put it down. Uh, when Hilmier went down, Raymond comes out to try to heal him, but it was an impale to the leg with one of the javelins. Um, so he heals what he could because you can't heal the javelin attack until the javelin's taken out. And he gets engaged with another orc there. Wes finally gets the sleep spell off, and I think it was a four. Yeah, four of the orcs go down. There was like 8 total, but one or two of them were already dead. In fact, one of the orcs that was fighting Wes, another orc came down to help him out, and the first orc ended up fumbling and doing a BRP fumble. We used the fumble chart from BRP. Ended up critting nearest ally. Got his buddy in the leg, amputated that leg. So he's down, bleeding out. And the next round, I believe, is when Wes got the spell out. So that orc went down, and that orc, and that orc, and that orc. Plus that one's already dead. So there's 2 orcs left, number 5 and number 1. And number 5 sees what's going on, so he tries to book it out of there, but there's a couple of opportunity attacks going on against him. Wes kills number 2, moves up so he can kill number 7. Dispatch number 2 and move to dispatch number 7. When number 1 kind of realizes I'm the only one left, and so he books it off to the west, out the or the east rather, out the door. West does get an opportunity attack, but only does 3 points of damage. He rolled a 1, so doesn't get through anything. But West chases him down. He's going to do a shock bolt, overcharged shock bolt to try and take him out. But between movement, the time to cast, and all that kind of stuff, he ends up getting to the orc runs out the entrance. So West gets to the entrance, steps out, big open field, right? The shock bolt's got a 100-foot range, so he does a 3-point shock bolt, I think it was, and missed his roll. So the shock bolt does not go off. At that point, the orcs running out of the valley, and okay, Wes is merciful, lets him go. Looking at my notes here. Hold on. While that's going on, they dispatch the rest of the goblins, loot the bodies. Wes comes back. There's some copper and some silver. The GM's just kind of keeping track of that on something. And we search the room. It's like a barracks, and there's evidence of more orcs, maybe half again as many as we've run into so far. But it all, dead ends. So we go back east, because they're back towards the entrance. There was a place to the north we bypassed. So we go up there, it goes further east. There's actually a little alcove to the south, and sure enough, in that alcove is a little spy hole into the entrance area. So when he's watching, they can see people coming in. Know it. How many people are there and what's going on? Excuse me. Continue on east, Goblin Barracks, and the numbers account for all the goblins we've run into so far. We collect some coins. Okay. We head north. I forgot where that was, but we end up going north, and there's a 4-way. Oh, back into the big room with the fireplace. I don't know if I mentioned this. There was a fireplace and a head table and benches and tables in there. That's where we fought the orcs. There was an entryway to the north. That's where Runt had snuck up into them, but came back out. When we were looking at it initially, we thought it kind of ended there, or maybe turned to the east, but it didn't. It had actually stairs or something. It was sloping up, I believe, maybe down. Oh, by the way, Runt came through and some more with that spear. The one he has no skill in, but ends up rolling low enough on that it's successful. But there's this 4-way intersection up there. To the north is just an alcove. To the east is a door, and to the west is a hallway. Runt checks the door. It's locked. There's no peepholes. Listens. Doesn't hear anything. Nothing in the alcove. We did searching there. Didn't find anything. Go west. And there's a door, and it's locked. Runt hears some movement inside, so Helmir takes his axe, and he hacks at the door. Don't remember how many rounds it took, but it took a few rounds for it to come down, which the GM was counting because something's going on, right? So bust open the door, 20 by 20 room. It was once a richly appointed room. It's got tapestries and that sort of thing. These tapestries, Raymond got a crit, I think it was, or maybe a special on his, figuring things out. So the tapestries again show this ancient Lorathian version of the religion, but this particular stuff is showing a warrior caste. There's training grounds, warriors making devotion at shrines, genuflecting, that kind of thing, right? There's something peculiar about it. There's some nightly vows of meditation. Normally that kind of stuff is done in front of Sylvanus. But here's something else going on with Lorath and weapons. So Raymond discusses with Runt, and includes Wes in that, about, this reformed Lorathian stuff, and all of a sudden, oh wait, maybe we should check out the noises behind the tap. Somebody hears some noises. There's some noises behind the tapestries. So we start searching behind the tapestries, and there is not a hidden door, but a covered entryway. Right? There's a chamber That's part of the old temple structure. In this chamber are two suits of chain, turn out to be steel. One size 13, the other is about half man size, but it's kind of dwarven. Wes figures out because nice and broad in the chest, but not so long in the body. Two swords, both of which also appear to be steel. Um, yeah, it occurs to us, we haven't figured out yet already, that the orcs and the goblins in this area have been excavating the surrounding areas, and this is the stuff that they're finding. I didn't come up with that, but that came out. Okay. There's also a rectangular spot on the ground that's different than the surrounding area, like it's been cleaned, like there was a chest here and it's now gone. So we search again, and we can't find anything. So we don't not sure where things went or what happened. We go back to the other door all the way to the east, and Helmir hacks it down. It's just a storeroom again. Hacks sacks and foodstuffs. Good for a couple of weeks. Some of it has some nutritional value. The question is, do we really want to eat that? There's some dried food that's human. I understood that it was human food. No, it's human flesh that's been turned into dried food. Ugh. Okay, and there's some other supplies. Going through the crates, we find some spears, and a real crossbow with 60 bolts. So Helmier grabs that and tosses that cheap goblin crossbow he's been playing with. And then as we leave, we torch that room. Okay, we make a travois from some of the spear shafts, load up the armor and the weapons and stuff, and tapestries. We rolled up the tapestries, and we head back to the base camp. We stay at the sunken farmhouse. While we're at the base camp and they're packing things up, there's some questions about the tapestries. Raymond kind of tries to slough it off as they're of interest to him. What, these old nasty things? Well, you'll have to clean them up, that kind of thing. But nothing special here. So the whole group packs up and we head back to Kars. Hilmir's kind of hesitant on this because he's a backwoods farm boy and this is the big city we're going to. But takes us a couple days, week. Takes us a couple days to get to the base camp and then a week to get back to Kars. Okay, so we arrive at Herman's. He asks how things went. Hey, where's Alexander? And who's this guy? And so we do a little report of events there about the tower and the evil priest, the undead. Don't mention Lynn. So our plan is to spend the night in town and visit the church first thing in the morning to talk about things like the tapestries, etc., etc., etc. But as we're leaving outside the walled city, going towards the walled city, Wes gets sprayed with something wet and sticky. Look around. A peasant next to him's got a crossbow bolt through the head. So there's some reacting. Wes is trying to triangulate where did this shot come from, kind of thing. Helmir sees Wes standing out there looking around and grabs him, tries to pull him off to get out of the line of fire and get into safety. And Wes would after looking around, not be able to see anything, would do the same. Get back out of the way, keep looking around. Runt goes to investigate the bolt, and it's cold and actually melts away into water as he picked it up. And so Runt's out there and he starts looking around. He knows that the line of sight is coming from the battlements. So between the barbicans on the battlements and the time from walking out to where we're going, there's something going on. And Runt thinks that somebody's trying to kill Wes because of the pseudo dragon egg. That's what he's convinced it's about. But anyway, we go into the town, into the walled city, Kars itself, and we go to the Lorathian temple. Runt speaks to a priestess about seeking shelter because of all the attempts on my life, or on Wes's life. He's thinking that the previous attempt, because when we left to go to the mines where we got the pseudo dragon egg, there was another crossbow bolt attack that ended up killing a peasant. In this whole discussion, Runt kind of mentions that Wes is a noble And this is the second attempt. And so things are starting to get a little heated on the fact that, what, Weston? Nope, what are you talking about? What? Who? So the priestess leads us through the temple to a guard room and, hey, protect these guys. So some of them armor up, but one steps outside the doorway. Runt asks Wes if he's ever heard of crossbow bolts that melt. And, Wes hasn't. Um, remember the last time we got fired up by crossbows leaving cars? Now, I think both of these were, after you. And he thinks about the pseudo dragon egg. There was some just a dragon egg, and so Hilmir gets wrapped up. Hilmir gets briefed up on the whole pseudo dragon egg, and Wes asks Sapphire if is she willing to come out and show herself because she's invisible this time in the hood of his robe. Okay, I clicks out and licks her paws, looks around, curls back up, and crawls back into the hood. So Hilmir's kind of freaking out. But anyway, the high priestess comes in with Krim and asks what happened. Wes describes the event of the situation here and then passes off to Runt, who obviously saw more. And he explains this whole thing about the bolt and the battlements, and that would take somebody who knows what they're doing, a sharpshooter kind of thing. Raymond brings up our recent expedition and some of the ancient Lorathian temple grounds that are up there in these mountains, in this valley that we were actually specifically in. And Runt starts to share some of the information that he learned from Lynn, the Gorgon, and that kind of comes out from the days of Forg, the temple grounds, and the high priestess and Krim mentioned about there are church stories about someone like that. It may be her. Um, and there's a mention about a scroll. That's right. There was a scroll that had power in it. And so what? There are artifacts of the ancient Lorathian temples. So they're all concerned about that. Could we talk about the mosaic and the tapestries, and we show some of the drawings that Wes has in his book. There were wall paintings. Plus, there were the books that Lynn had as salvage from the evil priest's room. And so we discussed everything. Okay, the temple may be interested in these things, right? Um, and then it comes up: is it possible that the attack on Raymond and Hamlet, where he got hit in the head with a crossbow bolt, was actually intended for Wes? Um, and most of us seem to remember Raymond going to the church by himself at night. Um, but looking back through my notes, no, we were all there. Wes was there because after the crossbow bolt went off, he did the flashlight thing and started looking around and went down the stream and there's a whole little section of things happening there then. So we're all starting to think that maybe all of these attacks have in fact been after Wes. Questions that need answers. The priestess mentions she's going to speak with Herma about any assistance that the church can provide for him in identifying and investigating these articles. And she temporarily assigns Krim to Wes's protection. Lynn is of a significant interest. If there's any way that Runt can contact her to let her know that the church here would like to speak with her. Some more discussion goes on about the evil priests and stuff like that. They're worshiping Forg. Forg is not a god, but these clerics are worshiping him, and they have power. So that's one of these weird things going on, right? So we end up staying the night at the church. The high priestess does say to Krim before we all separate that perhaps we should go to the villa discreetly. And Krim kind of grins and says, I know the perfect group. Okay, next day. Krim and Heta are both waiting for us. Is there anything we need to do before we go? And Wes wants to go to the Mages Guild and talk with Thurman, let him know what's going on. So Krim and Heta and Wes head over to the Mages Guild so that Wes can speak with Thurman about these assassination attempts. All right, and he mentions to Thurman, hey, this what happened. There was one before. We actually had something that looked like it may have been the same thing back in Hamlet. We need to let folks in Telgar know what's going on. And Thurman says your mother would hang me by my toenails if I did not personally, specifically let her know about these incidences. So apparently he's been poking around into my background, into Wes's background, from what was going on. And while everybody in the party, except for Helmir, knows Wes, is a noble, from Telgar. Um, that's now coming out here, right? So Wes then regurgitates to Thurman all the stuff we kind of regurgitated to the temple about. Okay, these are the things that the guild may be interested in. Some specific magic kinds of things. Plus, there's magic armor, magic weapons, if they're interested in that kind of thing, which I wouldn't think they would be. But there were spell books and there were the snake staff and things like that. West does mention the Gorgon, and so there's this sidetrack of conversation. You let a Gorgon live? What are you talking about? Hey, she does not want to turn people to stone, and West was trying to specifically leave out the Loranthan Temple connection. So discuss. Hey, we helped her escape. She helped us with taking vengeance on these guys, and she did not want to turn people to stone. She specifically took actions to protect us from being turned to stone. Trying to get that across to him. He's still not totally convinced because he wanted to inform the Black Hand, and that's the last thing that we as a party want to have happen is the Black Hand to get involved with anything. So West Preston, hey, don't do that. I am suspicious of them for various other reasons. And she is way up north. She's up there by the entrance to Forgland and the tower there on the borderlands and all that kind of stuff. So she's not a danger to anybody, really. Um, West does ask about if there's a way to transfer funds. And turns out that funds have been transferred. There's a line of credit that's been set up with the Seneschal at the keep. Um, so now the Baron knows that Wes is of nobility. So there's going to be some social obligations that are going to ensue. Thurman recommends that maybe we transfer that line of credit to the guild hall so that I can get funds from here instead. So we set that up. So Wes is finally not afraid of being poor anymore. He is going to have to buy some fancy clothes to go to some of these social obligation stuff. That's going to pull him out of a few things. But he just wanted to get too uppity on things. Um, in discussing with Thurman about Wes's mother's reaction, I had completely forgot how high of a social standing role I had actually made. Um, I knew Wes was in the line somewhere, but he thought he was pretty well down, and apparently he's not all that far. He's down a ways. He's not up there near the top anywhere, but he's significant. So that could be why things happen. And now, as I'm discussing all this, I'm remembering that Wes is actually from Zig, the capital, but was sent to Telgar um, like a boarding school situation. So there could have been some issues up there with my family and me. So that's some interesting stuff. Anyway, we do some downtime at the villa. A week goes by, and we'll start the next session with skill increase rolls. Happy gaming.